Chapter 2950. A Path with a Slim Chance of Survival. The Sage-to-be realm was the realm of sages. They already possessed the bloodline of gods. It was a higher realm than the martial immortal realm. Every sage-to-be expert could travel through the 9 provinces and change the laws of the world. They could change the sun, moon, stars, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. They were extremely powerful. As for the sages above the sage-to-be realm, they were people who could move the world. They could pass down the powerful great Tao of the world. Even if a martial artist had no martial strength, as long as he was fated to listen to their teachings, he could instantly become an indomitable expert. The great Tao was formless. If one heard it in the morning, one could die in the evening without regrets. The entire path was covered in skeletons, with terrifying auras lingering in the air. Boom, boom. However, a meteor-like figure continued to bombard the ground, shattering all the white skeletons just to take a step forward. The figure in the blue and white robe was also covered in blood. That was because the white skeletons could not die. He could only continue to bombard the white skeletons and never retreat. He was like a small pawn. Although his pace was slow, he did not retreat at all. Come at me more fiercely. At that moment, Lin Ling's face was filled with exhaustion. However, his godly demon body was so strong that he could not fall. Moreover, as he was smashing the white skeletons, he was refining the imperial crystal to increase the power of the world sea in his dantian. After an unknown period of time, Lin Ling's dantian was continuously consumed and filled up. In the end, he stepped into the second level of the martial immortal realm. The remaining 2 dantians also stepped into the same realm. This greatly increased his strength and made it easier for him to fight against the white skeletons on the ancient road. Rumble. At that moment, the sky began to rumble. The entire dragon palace seemed to be shaking. In a distant place, the magnates raised their heads to look at the sky. They also noticed the changes in the dragon palace. The dragon palace is about to leave. Anyway, I have already obtained great benefits. The 99th prince frowned. Then, he smiled and did not plan to continue searching for the dragon palace. He felt that the dragon palace was more terrifying than he had imagined. If he continued, he would be in danger. The other magnates also felt the same. They even thought that they had already obtained the most precious treasure of the dragon palace. The cultivators began to retreat. Some experts who had less gains were unwilling to leave. However, they were killed by the dragon palace. I hope Master is fine. The 3rd princess also obtained the treasure she needed. She looked at the awakened suppressing dragon palace. At this moment, Lin Ling was still fighting on the great path. He had no way out. He had to obtain the divine dragon origin pill. In the past, when he was in the crimson state, he saw the cultivators of the 9 states fighting for the dragon soul. At that time, there were many cultivators. However, it was only for the dragon soul of the divine dragon. What Lin Ling valued now was the divine dragon elixir, which was even more precious than the dragon soul of the divine dragon. So, how could Lin Ling miss this precious treasure? Boom! After an unknown period of time, Lin Ling fell from the sky. His face was pale. He quickly sat down cross-legged. Although his strength had increased greatly, there were too many skeletons on the road. In front of them, neat rows of white skeletons were marching toward them, and in the sky, countless dragon souls of their descendants were also flying toward them. Scram! Lin Ling raised his head to look at the sky. With a roar, his soul power burst out. Boom! 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 A large number of dragon souls were shattered. Lin Ling took the opportunity to catch his breath. However, he was helpless against the skeletons on the road. Swoosh! At that moment, the scabbard on his back flew out on its own. He slashed the sword forward. The sword radiance was crystal clear and resplendent. Rumble! All the skeletons were split into 2. They could not block the sword. My head, where is it? The headless elder was floating in front of Lin Ling, as he muttered to himself. Who knows? This sudden change made Lin Ling laugh out loud. The scabbard had once again floated out to protect him when his life was in danger. Right now, the skeletons on the road had been slashed apart. It would take some time for them to return to their original state. If he did not leave now, when would he leave? Lin Ling quickly stood up. With his right hand, He grabbed the scabbard and shot it forward. "Old man, I will find your head. Don't worry." Lin Ling even shouted at the scabbard. He did not care if the scabbard understood him. As for the headless elder's sword, it was indeed terrifying. The entire road had been cleared. Lin Ling finally charged across the road. Black land began to appear in front of him. This was also the first time Lin Ling saw an endless land in the wake-suppressing dragon palace. On the land there was nothing. In the distance a huge ancient tree sat there. It swayed with the wind, giving off a sinister feeling. Upon closer inspection, there were many corpses hanging from the ancient tree. Those corpses were constantly swaying. It was a ghastly sight. "Where the fuck is this?" Lin Ling's expression turned solemn. The road to the main tomb was indeed filled with danger. At this moment, a tree branch suddenly shot out from the ground and wrapped around Lin Ling's leg. More and more branches appeared, gradually wrapping around Lin Ling. These branches were completely black, but extremely tough. Even with Lin Ling's physical strength, he could not break free. Not good. "This is the universal ghost tree." Lin Ling's expression changed drastically. This was because he recognized that this was the ghost tree from the underworld. It was even more terrifying than the ghost tree in the myriad realms. A single leaf from this tree could even turn into a ghost domain in the myriad realms. Furthermore, the branches were pulling Lin Ling towards the tree in front of him. Lin Ling was hanging there. Furthermore, Lin Ling realized that his vitality was constantly being absorbed. It seemed that he was about to become one of the corpses on the tree. He looked to the side and found that the corpse hanging there was an old man in a Taoist robe. He did not know how long he had been dead. In any case, his face was filled with pain. Lin Ling won't die here, right?" Lin Ling roared in his heart. He wanted to activate the space-time divine steel. However, he was exhausted at this moment. His realm essence was not enough to activate it. Kunlun. However, at this moment, Lin Ling's left hand made a sound. The black vine swam out. "Little Kunlun." Sensing this, Lin Ling's pupils constricted. In his eyes, the black vine swam towards the ancient tree and wrapped around it. "Little Kunlun wants to save me." Lin Ling understood little Kunlun's intention. Pa. However, at this moment a crisp sound rang out. Little Kunlun was wrapped around the ancient tree, but some mysterious force broke it. Blood flowed out of the broken vine. This made Lin Ling's heart ache. Kunlun. However, among the broken vines, one of the vines grew again and wrapped around the ancient tree. Pa. However, it broke again. However, the weaker vine wrapped around it again, as if it would not stop until it was dead. Little Kunlun. Seeing this scene, Lin Ling could not help but feel sad. He knew that little Kunlun was broken. This would definitely cause fatal damage to little Kunlun. However, little Kunlun did not retreat. It still wanted to save Lin Ling. Chapter 2951. The Main Tomb Canyon. Crack, crack, crack. Cracking sounds were heard continuously. In the end, Lin Ling could no longer see little Kunlun. It was probably as big as a strand of hair. Little Kunlun. Little Kunlun. Lin Ling said weakly. His eyes were moist. However, his vitality was fading, and he gradually closed his eyes. However, he did not see that the hair-sized vine on the ground was still moving towards the ancient tree. It was moving along the bark of the ancient tree. After an unknown period of time, the entire ancient ghost tree began to sway. Moreover, a series of sharp and painful cries rang out, as if the night crows were crying. Then, leaves fell everywhere, and the corpses hanging on the tree fell down one after another. Lin Ling was among them. However, Lin Ling did not see that the ghost tree from the underworld had begun to wither quietly. On the bark, black vines swam out and wrapped around the ghost tree tightly. It was as if the vines had absorbed all the nutrients of the tree. After an unknown period of time, Lin Ling opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the ferocious ancient tree. He felt a chill in his heart. This damn thing was too scary. However, he soon realized that the ghost tree was surrounded by black vines. Those vines were full of sharp thorns and looked extremely ferocious. What's going on? Could that be little Kunlun? Little Kunlun. Lin Ling's mouth was wide open. He could not believe it. Little Kunlun. Little Kunlun. He hurriedly yelled out. Rumble. Suddenly, a deafening sound could be heard. A scene that shocked Lin Ling appeared. The entire ground was covered with black vines. It was as if countless snakes were slithering towards Lin Ling. They surrounded Lin Ling. Then those vines began to shrink. In the end, they turned into a black vine. It was only as thick as a finger, but it was extremely mysterious. Most importantly, that vine kept shaking at Lin Ling like a dog wagging its tail. Little Kunlun. Little Kunlun. Seeing this, Lin Ling finally confirmed that this fellow was Little Kunlun. Looking ahead again, there was no longer a ghost tree. There was only a piece of rotten wood. It seemed that the ghost tree had been completely absorbed by Little Kunlun. This also surprised Lin Ling. He didn't expect Little Kunlun to have such power. However, when he thought about Kunlun's origin, Lin Ling felt relieved. Little Kunlun was obtained from the place where the Qing Thearch's imperial jade seal was seized. That place was obviously related to the rules of the gods. That kind of place was naturally not something that Lin Ling could understand at the moment. Haha, Little Kunlun, I owe you a life. Putting away his thoughts, Lin Ling couldn't help but laugh out loud. Next, it should be time to reach the main tomb. The dragon god Yuan Dan that he exchanged with his life should not disappoint Lin Ling. Right? Let's go, Little Kunlun, let's go. Bringing along Little Kunlun, Lin Ling advanced along the vast land. In front of him, it was lonely and silent. It made Lin Ling feel as if he had arrived in the netherworld. Anyone who walked here for a long time would definitely feel bored and couldn't help but want to leave this place. However, Lin Ling had learned martial arts in 2 lives and was already used to this kind of boredom. Instead, he used this period of time to cleanse the world essence in his dantian, making it even purer. The world essence in his 3 dantians also became denser. Currently, Lin Ling was at the 2nd level of the martial immortal realm. After fusing his 3 dantians, he could defeat a 6th level martial immortal. If he faced a genius level expert, Lin Ling could defeat a 4th level martial immortal. In the entire Azure province, such strength could definitely be ranked in the top 50. And in the Azure province, there were countless experts. To be able to enter the top 50, one definitely had the qualifications to be called a king. Along the way, Lin Ling walked through 4 seasons. He carried his sword on his back, like a lone swordsman. Occasionally, he would chat with Little Kunlun, but most of the time, he was thinking about martial arts. His ultimate flame path had also quietly increased. The power of the universe had reached 50%. As his strength increased, the help of the evil flame change was becoming less and less. This was a pity. Unknowingly, snow had begun to fall from the sky. The land was white. We still haven't reached the end. Lin Ling looked up, a firm look on his handsome face. After shaking off the snow on his body, he continued onward. Kunlun. The surrounding cold had no effect on Little Kunlun. It was like a tattoo that wrapped around Lin Ling's left arm. It had a different style to it. During this time, Lin Ling and Little Kunlun were constantly talking. Although he didn't understand what Little Kunlun was saying, he roughly knew that after Little Kunlun swallowed the ghost tree, its strength had greatly increased. As for what boundary it had risen to, Lin Ling wasn't too sure. How strange. You're so strong but you still can't speak. Lin Ling helplessly stroked the vine on his left arm. At this time, the scene in front of him finally changed. The demon god's tomb appeared. The earth was covered with tombstones. It was lonely and silent, but a terrifying aura filled the air. Is this the final trial? Lin Ling looked up, a confident smile on his face. Gulyalu. Just as he finished speaking, the demon god's tomb began to change. A large number of ancient souls rushed out from the tombstones. Ghost energy filled the air. The masters of these tombstones were definitely powerhouses of the half-step sage realm when they were alive. Scram. However, the current Lin Ling was no longer the Lin Ling of the past. He roared and his soul force bloomed. Bang bang bang. The ancient souls in front of him all exploded. Chapter 2952. I Lin Ling will not retreat in less than 3 incense sticks time. Level 2 Martial Immortal? However, what shocked the old man even more was that this person's cultivation was so low. Impossible. The old man kept shaking his head. Along the way, danger lurked everywhere. It was simply impossible for a martial immortal to reach the main tomb. Although the old man's strength was overwhelming, he was not arrogant. He clasped his hands at Lin Ling and said, "Young friend, I am Xing Xian of the Spirit Province. May I ask how you came here?" "I walked here." Lin Ling frowned slightly and replied indifferently. Hearing that, the old man almost smiled bitterly. Of course, he knew that Lin Ling walked here. However, what he wanted to know was how he got here. "Young friend, I am a saint. Coming here, I have a slim chance of survival. You are only a martial immortal," the old man said again. "Saint?" Lin Ling's eyes flickered. He did not expect the old man to be so powerful. However, seeing that the old man was in a sorry state, he could not help but smile and say, "Who said that martial immortals can't enter? Maybe I'm lucky. After all, I did not encounter any danger on my way here." Hearing that, the old man smiled bitterly again. He had risked his life to get here. However, this brat seemed so relaxed. Could it be that his character was that bad? How could he know that Lin Ling had obtained the map of the Dragon Palace through a shortcut? As for him, he had clearly forced his way in. Naturally, his treatment was different. "Young friend, you should leave. This dragon god Fusu is not someone you can face." After shaking his head, the old man reminded Lin Ling could tell that it was a kind reminder. Involuntarily, Lin Ling's impression of the old man increased. "Thank you. However, this dragon god Fusu does not seem to be someone you can face either." Lin Ling glanced at the enormous bone dragon and said with a smile, "You have a sharp tongue. However, that is true. I have already fought with dragon god Fusu for 3 years. The old man shook his head helplessly and said, "This dragon god Fusu still left a weak soul imprint. In addition, before it died, it set up a huge barrier around the Dragon Palace. This caused its power to not weaken by much. Now that I have fought with it for 3 years, although it is on the verge of collapse, I am also exhausted. Since that's the case, why don't we work together? I want the Dragon God Essence Pill." Lin Ling's eyes lit up as he said lightly. However, these words caused the old man's beard to snort. The Dragon God Essence Pill was the most precious item of the Fusu Dragon God. This little fellow was really asking for too much. "If you can kill Fusu Dragon God, I don't mind giving you the Dragon God Essence Pellet. I want the Dragon Bone Reverse Scale. To tell you the truth, this old man was heavily injured before coming here. I urgently need the Dragon Bone Reverse Scale to cleanse my bones." The old man pondered deeply for a moment. Even though he didn't believe that Lin Ling was a match for Dragon God Fusu, he had no other choice now. Said. Lin Ling nodded. No wonder the old man couldn't defeat Dragon God Fusu. He was injured. "Now, can you block it for me for an incense stick's worth of time?" The old man said. "I can recover 30% of my strength in that time." Don't be fooled by his motionless appearance. In fact, he was still in a stalemate with Fusu Dragon God. If he took a step back, he would be doomed eternally. An incense stick's worth of time is too little. How about 3? Lin Ling stared at Dragon God Fusu and said proudly. The old man's eyes narrowed. He had always thought that Lin Ling was a little brat. However, he saw the demeanor of an expert in Lin Ling. He couldn't help but be moved. "You have guts. Fine, I will bet with you." The old man couldn't help but laugh. He sat down cross-legged. The whole process was straightforward and decisive. He'd bet his life on Lin Ling, because the moment he sat down cross-legged, the bone dragon would definitely attack him. And only Lin Ling could protect him. "Old man, you're a little too trusting, aren't you?" Even Lin Ling was shocked by the old man's generosity. "I believe in my own eyes." The old man smiled and nodded. At the same time, the bone dragon roared. Mixed with an ancient aura, it swept towards the old man. However, the old man was unfazed. His long robe fluttered in the wind, and he recovered just like that. When he saw this, a heroic feeling rose in Lin Ling's heart. The other party had only met him by chance, but he trusted him so much. Although he, Lin Ling, was not a good person, he would not disappoint. "I, Lin Ling, will not retreat before 3 incense sticks worth of time." Lin Ling uttered and exploded with all his strength. The realm-swallowing beast arrived and charged forward with rolling flames. Boom! The moment it collided with the bone dragon was frozen by Lin Ling's punch. However, Lin Ling was obviously no match for the bone dragon. He was sent flying. This guy. Although the old man was recovering, he saw Lin Ling attack. At this moment his beard was blown up, because he didn't expect Lin Ling to be so strong, especially when he saw that Lin Ling actually had the talent of the realm-swallowing beast. This made him extremely shocked. Moreover, Lin Ling seemed to be at the second level of the martial immortal realm. However, his realm essence was so vast that it made him feel like he was at the sixth level of the martial immortal realm. Where did this freak come from? The old man couldn't help but spit out this sentence. However, at this moment, the bone dragon exploded with a fierce aura and swept towards the old man again. This caused the old man's pupils to narrow. Although Lin Ling surprised him, it was obvious that he couldn't stop the bone dragon. At this moment, he was recovering his realm essence. If he stopped halfway, not only would there be no benefits, it would be harmful. However, it seemed that it was impossible for him not to attack. It seemed that he only had a short time to recover. Just as he was about to stand up, a figure shot over like a meteor and collided with the bone dragon again. Rumble. Without a doubt, Lin Ling was sent flying again. Little guy, are you courting death? Seeing this, the old man immediately cried out in alarm. He was somewhat moved because Lin Ling didn't know him. However, he kept his promise and said that he would protect him for 3 incense sticks worth of time. He immediately risked his life. After all, he thought that Lin Ling wouldn't be able to stand up again after this move. Obediently recover your realm essence. It's not time yet. It's not your turn to speak. On the ground, Lin Ling stood up again. His body was covered in blood, but his voice was filled with dignity. Fine, you're the first martial immortal realm, but you dare to speak to me like this. However, at this moment, I'll listen to you. The old man smiled bitterly and closed his eyes. He seized this rare recovery time. Roar. The huge bone dragon still had a bit of intelligence. It knew that if it didn't get rid of Lin Ling would definitely pester it like a fly. Therefore, it looked at Lin Ling and attacked Lin Ling. With Lin Ling's current strength, he was no match for dragon god Fusu at all, even if it was only a corpse. Fortunately, Lin Ling's goal was to hold on for 3 incense sticks worth of time. Come and fight. Lin Ling's eyes were filled with battle intent. The realm-devouring beast's talent made his body strong. Even if he was injured, he could quickly recover. Boom. Boom. Chapter 2953. Slaying the Dragon God with a Single Strike. Flaming Coffin. Lin Ling also used all his ultimate moves, causing the sky to be filled with colorful flames that were extremely resplendent. The flaming coffin at the second level of the martial immortal realm was undoubtedly extremely terrifying. 50% of the power of the universe continued to bombard the canyon. What a great genius! Although the elder was recovering, he was still paying attention to the battle. He could not help but nod in admiration. He had wanted to help Lin Ling when he was in the most danger. However, Lin Ling did not let him down and remained undefeated. His fighting spirit was extremely tenacious. Furthermore, he used all sorts of powerful moves. The elder had to admit that even though he had traversed the 9 provinces, he had never met a genius like Lin Ling. Rumble. The flaming coffin smashed down, but unfortunately, it did not affect the bone dragon much. It only managed to buy some time. In the end, the bone dragon let out a roar as divine light enveloped the canyon. With an even crazier aura, it swept towards Lin Ling. You are so difficult to deal with even after death. Could it be that you still yearn for the prosperity of this world? Lin Ling gritted his teeth. He had already tried his best, but unfortunately, he could not stop the bone dragon. Therefore, he could only use another trump card. Space-time Divine Steel. Rumble. The terrifying space-time Divine Steel was like the laws of the gods. It was filled with a domineering and ancient aura, as it smashed down heavily. This time, the bone dragon was smashed to the ground. The canyon seemed to be collapsing. The elder opened his eyes in shock and said, Space-time Divine Steel? The legendary Ultimate Desolate Body? The Ultimate Desolate Body was also divided into grades. Although the space-time divine steel was not the highest grade, having it meant that one had the ultimate desolate body. He never expected Lin Ling's talent to exceed his expectations. Furthermore, Lin Ling had the talent of the realm-devouring beast and the space-time divine steel. He was also a monster with 2 talents. What are you so surprised about? Hurry up and recover. At that moment, Lin Ling heard the elder's exclamation. He could not help but curse. Did this old man think that Lin Ling was easy to deal with? He even had the mood to watch Lin Ling attack. I'm sorry. The old man also reacted and hurriedly closed his eyes to recover. However, his heart was still shaken. Rumble. Meanwhile, the ground started to wriggle, and the space-time divine steel actually slowly rose into the air. It turned out that the bone dragon had crawled up once more, and its enormous dragon head had lifted the space-time divine steel up into the air. I'm still too weak. I can't unleash the full power of the space-time divine steel. Seeing this, Lin Ling frowned. He had great talent, but his cultivation level was too low. He couldn't use it. As for the bone dragon, it was like a flying dragon in the sky. Its hollow eyes stared at Lin Ling, and there was a cold glint in its eyes. It was clear that it still had a sliver of intelligence. It knew that this little brat had to be eliminated, because once he grew up, he wouldn't be much weaker than the old man. Rumble. Layers of colorful clouds began to appear in the canyon, causing the canyon to be illuminated by a myriad of multicolored lights. Divine light of Fusu, little brat, this is not good. This bone dragon is going to use its full strength when it was still alive. Although it's only for the time it takes to burn an incense stick, it's definitely not something you can withstand. At this moment, the old man's expression was extremely serious. He had fought with Dragon God Fusu for 3 years, and he knew that Dragon God Fusu had such means. Stand down. I'll do it. The old man wanted to stand up. Shut up. I, Lin Ling, may not be a good person, but I've always kept my word. 3 incense sticks have yet to burn, and this is not your battlefield. However, Lin Ling reprimanded him directly. This made the old man even more grateful. However, it was also because of this that he didn't want Lin Ling to die here. You're not its match. You've already fallen many times. That's enough to be proud of. Let me do it. Men can fall, but they won't fall forever. You can't say that you can't do it. Lin Ling's long hair danced wildly. His blue robe was covered in blood, as if he was bathed in blood. Hearing this, the old man's heart rumbled. For the first time, he carefully sized up Lin Ling. Men can fall, but they won't fall forever. What an arrogant young man. At this moment, the old man couldn't bear to help, because if he did, it would be a humiliation to Lin Ling. Please don't die. 3 incense sticks. Time is getting closer and closer. The old man gritted his teeth. What he could do now was to recover his strength as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, in these 3 years, he had constantly fought Dragon God Fusu, causing the treasures to recover his realm essence to be used up. Otherwise, he could also fight side by side with Lin Ling. Rumble. After the divine light of Fusu enveloped the valley, the bone dragon grew even larger. It rushed into the sky, stirring up the entire dragon palace. The dragon palace shook as if it was about to shatter. Then, the bone dragon covered the sky and earth, as if it was going to destroy the world. Sensing this, the old man's heart bled. He knew that Lin Ling couldn't hold on anymore. However, Lin Ling still stood tall like a pine tree. He didn't retreat. Whether it was for the promise or for the Dragon God Vitality Pill, he wouldn't retreat. It's up to you, Headless Senior. His hand touched the ancient sword behind him. This was his other trump card. It was stronger than the Time and Space Divine Steel. Of course, the Time and Space Divine Steel's potential had not been stimulated. The moment the sword touched, the sky changed color and time froze. A headless old man appeared behind Lin Ling. Demonic aura surged and sword chi gushed. This deity from the ancient times seemed to have become one with Lin Ling, and they were fighting in the era of the ancient deities. The sword was in Lin Ling's hand. His body's strength was continuously absorbed. His essence, chi, and spirit condensed on the sword. In the next moment, the sword was unsheathed. The tyrannical song sword was roaring. It was as if only this sword was singing. Demonic sword rank. The old man sensed the surging demonic aura and couldn't help but open his eyes. That was because this was the power of a higher rank. It was above the universe. Whoosh! With a slash of the sword, the universe was broken and the sun and moon were destroyed. The multicolored suppressing awakening divine light was actually slashed apart by the sword. The gigantic bone dragon was also split into two. The sword wherever it went. Rumble! The bone dragon crashed into the canyon, shaking the sky and earth. Dragon god slain with a single sword. What other trump cards is this brat hiding? The old man was so scared that his face turned pale. He had never seen such a powerful first-level martial immortal. It was as if he saw a 5 or 6-year-old child suddenly become a martial arts master. Bang! Bang! On the ground, the bone dragon, which had been cut into pieces, let out a crisp sound. It actually reformed once again. Although it was much weaker than before, this time, it charged at Lin Ling with a ferocious aura. It wanted to kill Lin Ling as soon as possible. Although Lin Ling's shocking sword move was powerful, it was obviously not enough to shake the time and space divine dragon. After all, even the old man in the sage realm had fought for 3 years. Lin Ling naturally couldn't do it. What a tough bone. Chapter 2954. Dragon God Fusu was killed. Lin Ling couldn't help but roar. Old man, what are you doing? Brat, I'm waiting for you to slash out again. That sword was too beautiful. Beautiful? Are you an idiot? A second-level martial immortal is already very powerful. How can I slash out a second time? Do you think I'm a god? Sorry. I'm sorry I misunderstood. I was truly shocked by your strength. I've never seen such a powerful second-level martial immortal before. After Lin Ling scolded him, the old man came to his senses. 3 incense sticks worth of time had passed. He jumped up and roared like thunder. It's my turn. The entire canyon moved. The huge realm essence seemed to overturn the chaos. Plop! Lin Ling sat on the ground powerlessly. He looked at the old man in the sky and was speechless. Did that old man have to be so pretentious? Little friend, the person I entrusted to you didn't disappoint me. You're a true man. You said 3 incense sticks, and you did it. Now it's my turn, and I won't disappoint you. Watch me. The old man had recovered 30% of his strength, and he had the demeanor of a transcendent being. At this moment his fighting spirit was high. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and attack. Attack! Lin Ling couldn't help but curse. I won't disappoint you. 9 luminaries flow, primordial beginning wander, essence bright, original spirit disperse. Endless hope, send my radiance to Zhu Jing, resolve stagnation. Obtain the flying cloud, rise to the purple star. Everything in the world let me foresee. Attack! The old man muttered to himself. He activated a powerful technique and combined it with his talent. His true god martial spirit also reached the 4th seal. His whole body became huge. Realm essence surged like a war god. Little worm, I'll show you my power. Attack! A rolling palm mixed with purple light blasted toward the bone dragon. Rumble! The terrifying power hit the bone dragon, causing its bones to splatter and the entire canyon to collapse. Arrogant! Attack! Bully me! Attack! I'll let you die with everlasting regret. I can't lose face in front of that brat. Go to hell. Rumble! The old man looked down from above like a god. His palms continued to strike, and with each strike he let out a roar. Lin Ling rolled his eyes when he heard those words. He didn't expect there to be such a strange expert in the land of the 9 prefectures. However, he had to admit that the strength of the old man was indeed terrifying. He was even stronger than Li Xiaoyao in the past. Of course, Li Xiaoyao had only cultivated for a short period of time. If it weren't for the fact that he was harmed by the heavenly glaze, he would definitely surpass that old man in the future. Boom! With the old man's final palm strike, the ground was flattened, and the bone dragon was blown to pieces. Did you see that? I fulfilled my promise. The old man panted heavily and looked at Lin Ling with a smug expression. Perhaps because Lin Ling had risked his life to protect him, he felt that he couldn't let go of his pride. Therefore, after recovering a certain amount of strength, he wanted to broaden Lin Ling's horizons and even worship him. Unfortunately, Lin Ling had already seen his strength in his previous life. Therefore his reaction was very calm. He nodded and said, "Mm." This expression, this indifferent made the old man feel like he had failed. It was as if he had suffered a huge blow. Don't be so proud. The dragon god Fu Su before his death is even more terrifying. But soon Lin Ling's eyes narrowed, because his soul power sensed that the broken pieces of the dragon god Fu Su were attacking from all directions and surrounding the old man. This happened very quickly. When the old man reacted, his expression changed greatly. Unknowingly, a huge bone dragon had appeared in front of the old man. The dragon's head was roaring, and it continued to wrap around the old man. It wanted to wrap the old man to death. If the power of the bone dragon wrapped around 10,000 worlds, even 10,000 worlds would collapse. Not good. The old man's eyes trembled. Then he laughed bitterly. I didn't expect that Xing Xian would die here. I was too careless, too careless. If he hadn't taken credit in front of Lin Ling, he wouldn't have been so careless. Unfortunately, he was too eager to show off. This led to him being entangled by the dragon god Fu Su. That might not be the case. But at this moment, a clear voice suddenly sounded in the old man's ears. Then a black bolt of lightning suddenly shot into the sky. It was extremely fast. Before the dragon god Fu Su could wrap around the old man, it had already wrapped around the dragon god Fu Su. And what was even more terrifying was that the huge dragon god Fu Su's body was completely entangled, and what wrapped around it were black vines. At this moment, the old man was stunned. He was shocked and dumbfounded. What are you doing? Hurry up and attack. However, Lin Ling's angry roar floated out again. Was this old man born with dementia? Why was he in a daze? Alright. The reason why the old man was in a daze was because he didn't expect Lin Ling to be hiding something. Moreover, it was an extremely terrifying move, because the vines that could wrap around the dragon god Fu Su were no small matter. Great World Heaven measuring palm. However, the old man knew that the vines wouldn't be able to wrap around it for long. Therefore he gathered all his strength on his palm. A mysterious ruler appeared behind him. It was as if it could measure the universe. Boom! With the vines wrapped around it, the palm landed cleanly on the dragon's head. The dragon god Fu Su let out a roar. Cracks began to appear on the dragon's head. Finally, layer upon layer of cracks appeared. It was as if a mountain had collapsed. At the same time, within the countless broken bones, a dim soul struggled. It was the dragon god Fu Su's soul. Die! At this moment, although Lin Ling was exhausted, his soul power hadn't been exhausted. Therefore, he used his soul power to clash with the dragon god Fu Su's soul. If it was the dragon god Fu Su from before, Lin Ling's soul power wouldn't affect it at all. However, the dragon god Fu Su was already dead. It was only a remnant soul that lingered in the world. In addition, it had fought with the old man for 3 years. Therefore, the dragon god Fu Su's soul was extremely dim. In the end, the dragon god Fu Su's soul power destroyed the dragon god Fu Su's soul power. Without the dragon god Fu Su's dragon soul, the bone dragon's corpse could no longer reform. Finally, it dimmed and the entire shattered canyon finally became quiet. It's been 3 years. I finally won. The old man stared at the dragon god Fu Su's soul. He was stunned in the sky. Tears flowed out of his eyes. In order to find the dragon god Fu Su's reverse scale, he had fought here for 3 years. Later he realized that he could no longer retreat. If he retreated, he would definitely be devoured by the dragon god Fu Su. Therefore he could only drag it out. However, an ordinary-looking kid suddenly appeared and said that the two of them would work together. At that time, he didn't believe that the kid could be of any help. However, in the end, the dragon god Fu Su that he had fought for 3 years was completely wiped out by the two of them. In fact, at the most critical moment, it was the kid who killed it. Chapter 2956. 3 years later, after refining the essence of the world mountain, my realm-devouring beast talent has reached the peak of the godly body. I'm just 1 step away from the desolate body. If I refine the dragon bone, I'll definitely be able to achieve the desolate body. However, after refining the essence of the world mountain, my godly demon body has reached its limit. The accumulation isn't enough, so I won't refine the dragon bone for the time being. After this trip to the 8 gods' celestial palace, my strength has greatly increased. It's time to return. After an unknown period of time, Lin Ling finally stood up and looked into the distance. A powerful aura emanated from his body. In Qingzhou, he had the confidence to go on a rampage. That was because he had too many trump cards. After standing up, Lin Ling looked into the distance. After stroking little Kunlun, he strode away. At this moment he could return to Qingzhou. Autumn and winter had arrived in Qing Prefecture. White snow covered the land, causing the ancient divine prefecture to gain a bit of vigor. 3 years. It had been 3 years since the trip to the 8 gods' celestial palace. In these 3 years, Qingzhou had undergone new changes. Among the 24 Son of Heaven's fate, a few of them had successfully transformed into the Qingzhou Emperor's imperial jade seal. The only thing missing was the final Son of Heaven's aura. This let people know that the new Qingzhou Emperor was about to ascend to the throne. Other than the changes in the Son of Heaven's fate, the 9 heavens of Qingzhou had changed greatly. Other than the most mysterious 4, the remaining 5 were Lin Ling, the 81st Prince, Sakura, Meng Lu, and a newly born heavenly king Fei Jinling. Fei Jinling was originally an ordinary genius. However, after obtaining great benefits from the 8 gods' celestial palace, he rose like a comet. His rise was almost comparable to Lin Ling. He was also known as one of the most monstrous geniuses in Qingzhou. At this moment, in the various cities of Qingzhou, there were several figures flying across the sky. They brought along a dazzling light, causing the eyes of the warriors on the ground to flicker. So beautiful. Who is that girl? She seems to be the most beautiful genius of Tsangming Academy, Jade Star Maiden. She seems to be following a youth. That youth seems to be Fei Jinling. What? Fei Jinling. Looking up at the sky, voices could be heard from the streets and alleys. Originally, no one knew who Fei Jinling was. However, a year ago, in order to make a name for himself in the Azure province, Fei Jinling came out in a domineering manner and defeated many experts. He even fought with the White Tiger Immortal Palace's palace lord for 3 months. In the end, he narrowly defeated the palace lord by Xiaoyang. After this battle, the name of the flying gold plume reached its peak. Everyone knew who he was. Senior brother, you're currently the most monstrous genius in Qing province. Your growth rate is the fastest, and you're already on par with Lin Ling. She was called Jade Star Girl. Although she was the most beautiful genius of the Tsangming Academy, her name was not enough to make her famous in the Qing state. However, a year ago, Fei Jinling appeared in front of her, knelt down on one knee, and took the initiative to pursue her. Because of this, she had become famous in the Qing state. She enjoyed all of this and was very excited. Lin Ling. However, Jade Star Girl's words made the young man frown slightly. Yes, Lin Ling is very famous in the Qing state. He has many achievements. It's not easy for senior brother to be on par with him. Jade Star Girl laughed. Haha. The young man also laughed. However, the displeasure in his heart grew stronger. He started from a nameless existence and rose to the top in a single step. In the end, he was worshipped by tens of thousands of people. Moreover, the leader of the giants personally threw an olive branch to him. This made him think that he was number 1 in the world. However, no matter how dazzling and monstrous he was, there was still one person above him. And that was Lin Ling. It was as if he could never surpass Lin Ling. No matter how dazzling he was only on par with Lin Ling. He's just lucky. The young man's tone was filled with jealousy. He felt that he had become famous too late. Otherwise, Lin Ling would definitely be below him. If there's a chance, I want to meet Di Shirtian and the 81st Prince. As for Meng Lu, he's not my opponent. The young man knew that if he wanted to gain a foothold in the 9 heavenly reports, he would need more battles. Star Girl, I've fallen in love with you since the first time I saw you. Unfortunately, I was very insignificant back then, just like an ant. Now I'm qualified to hold your hand. Just you wait. I'll become the leader of the 9 heavenly reports. The young man thought to himself, and disappeared into the distance with a few people. Are they going to the 5-ring city? Yes, But I heard that you can't fly in the Five-Ring City. The flying gold plume is an exception. He has such special privileges. Everyone looked at the sky with admiration. They hoped that they could be like the flying gold plume one day, soaring to the sky and shaking the ancient divine prefecture. The flying gold plume's story told them that in the world of martial arts, even if one's talent was ordinary, miracles could still happen. Sir, may I know why you've summoned me? At this moment, the flying gold plume had arrived at the Five-Ring City. In a bustling restaurant, he bowed to a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was holding a brush and drawing a landscape painting. His expression was calm, and his every move was filled with the demeanor of a master. He was the left Prime Minister. Chapter 2957. Not giving face. Yes, sir. Fei Jinling bowed and said. However, he was disdainful as he thought that he could bring Luo Shaci and the others back. After leaving the restaurant, he immediately summoned the experts of the left Prime Minister's palace. Even the level 6 and level 7 martial immortals had to listen to him. However, he was only a level 4 martial immortal. This showed how powerful he was. Let's go to the imperial court. He led the experts forward in a grandiose manner, causing the entire Five-Ring City to tremble. Senior brother, you're so cool. Looking at Fei Jinling, who had summoned the experts, the Jade Star Lady said with admiration. This is just the beginning. Fei Jinling looked at the top experts of Qingzhou and was filled with pride. He rode on a golden-armored dragon colt and headed toward the imperial court. The 9 heavens of Qingzhou wants to see the third prince. Yes. Before he even arrived, a roar drifted out of his mouth. The ancient mountain where the imperial court was located was in an uproar. Fei Jinling was a rising genius of the 8 gods' heavenly palace. Someone once said that Fei Jinling was the best in terms of opportunities. He was obviously an emperor-level genius who had risen like a comet. Fei Jinling, why have you come to the imperial court? Yes. Not long after, a large number of experts flew out from the imperial court. They were all middle-stage martial immortals, and there were many late-stage martial immortals among them. They were all the forces of the imperial court. In Qingzhou, once the imperial court moved, Qingzhou would be shaken. Among them, a woman in a long white dress walked over with graceful steps. She was as cold as a fairy. She was the third princess. When she walked out, all the light in the world seemed to be attracted to her. She was beautiful. Even Fei Jinling's expression changed. He was an ordinary person and was not qualified to see the third princess. Now that he saw her, he realized that the Jade Star Lady beside him was like a firefly compared to the third princess. What's the matter? Looking at Fei Jinling, the third princess said calmly. When Fei Jinling came to his senses, he smiled and said, I didn't expect the third princess to be such a beauty. How dare you? As soon as he finished speaking, angry shouts came from all around. No one had expected the flying gold plume to be so arrogant that he dared to flirt with the third princess. You've already joined the left Prime Minister's residence. You didn't come here just to see me, did you? However, the third princess was indeed a superior person. She did not get angry at all. She knew that the flying gold plume's strength wasn't bad. Even the White Tiger Divine Palace, one of the 4 great divine palaces in the Four-Ring City, wasn't his match. The flying gold plume's strength could be ranked at the top of the Qing province. Of course not. But I'm still flattered that the third princess has come to see me personally. Fei Jinling also smiled faintly. He knew that his strength had increased greatly, so the legendary daughter of Emperor Qing had to give him face. At this moment he was incomparably proud. Once upon a time, these overlords of the Azure Prefecture were existences that he had to look up to, and even if he looked up to them, he might not be able to see them in person. But now, he could speak face to face with an overlord of the Azure Prefecture. I'm here because I want 3 people. I hope that the third princess can give me face. If you agree, I, Fei Jinling, will owe you a favor. Fei Jinling continued. Of course, if the third princess wants me to join the imperial court, I can't do it because I joined the left Prime Minister's residence first. But since I owe the third princess a favor, as long as the third princess asks, I, Fei Jinling, will go through fire and water without hesitation. His words were filled with confidence. which made the eyes of the people of the imperial court flicker. The flying gold plume thought too highly of himself. The third princess didn't even say anything. How could he be so sure that the third princess would recruit him? Then may I know who you want? At this moment a middle-aged man spoke. It was 8th Ju. Fei Jinling looked at 8th Ju with disdain. He had naturally heard of 8th Ju's name, but he didn't take the current 8th Ju seriously. Luo Xiaothorn, Sun Bone and Rialger. Fei Jinling said faintly, "Let the three of them go, and I'll owe the imperial court a favor. This will be beneficial to you." "Dream on." 8th Ju and the others immediately spoke. They didn't hesitate at all, because the three of them were captured by Lin Ling. If they handed them over, wouldn't they be disrespecting Lin Ling and giving Fei Jinling face instead? Therefore, this was 100 times impossible. "I know, they're the people that Lin Ling wants to capture. But the third princess should reconsider. Between me and Lin Ling, who's more valuable? Moreover, you only want the three of them. The third princess won't fall out with Lin Ling." Fei Jinling said again. "Who do you think you are? Do you think you can get them just because you want them? Get lost now. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless." 8th Ju and the others spoke again. "Who do you think you are? You're just a bunch of stubborn old men. Don't be fooled by your high cultivation level. In reality, your talents are only so. It'll be difficult for you to break through in your lifetime. Can you compare to me? Moreover, even Ming Lu and Sakura from the imperial court are no match for me. Third princess, you should think about it yourself." Fei Jinling sneered. He wasn't afraid of 8th Ju and the others, because he had a large number of people from the left prime minister's residence behind him. The third princess looked into the distance coldly. She knew that the Empress Dowager was the one who gave the order to get the three people back. The Empress Dowager was the mastermind behind the left prime minister's residence. "What's going on? You look like you're facing a great enemy." At this moment, a figure walked over under the bright sun. His blue robe fluttered in the air, and he was extremely dazzling. Lin Ling. Everyone laughed excitedly when they saw the person who suddenly appeared. Although they knew that Lin Ling would return, they didn't expect him to come back at this moment. When they saw Lin Ling's return, it was as if they saw Grandma Wendao. In the imperial court, Lin Ling's status was comparable to Grandma Wendao and the third princess. Even the third princess couldn't help but laugh. She shouted, "Master, I've already said that I haven't agreed to accept you as my disciple." Lin Ling smiled. He walked down from the sky and landed on the Green Mountain. Lord 8th, Chi Yuhu, and the others looked at Lin Ling. They realized that Lin Ling's cultivation had reached level 2 martial immortal realm. Although his cultivation wasn't high, Lin Ling gave them a great pressure. The current Lin Ling would probably only be a match for the most powerful people in Qingzhou. Then they roughly explained what had happened in the past 3 years. However, when they talked about Sunbone and the other two, their expressions changed. They stared at Lin Ling, as if they were afraid that Lin Ling would be infuriated. However, Lin Ling was stunned. Then he smiled calmly. He wasn't angry at all. "What a bold junior. Don't worry, I'll settle this myself. Moreover, I'll go and collect some old debts." Moreover, he had witnessed Lin Ling's courage. In the 8 Gods' heavenly palace, he dared to provoke the leader of the magnates when he was only an early martial immortal. Such a person could do anything when he was angry. He said that this matter has nothing to do with the left prime minister's residence. He won't hold it against the left prime minister's residence for the time being. He also reminded us that the next time we attack Lin Ling, it's best to let the mastermind step in. The person said with a terrified expression. Hearing that, the magnates heaved a sigh of relief. Even the left prime minister was the same. However, his expression was still ugly. A mere Lin Ling dared to speak to him in such a tone. He didn't put the left prime minister in his eyes at all. When the others came to their senses, their eyes turned red with anger. "It's okay. We'll bear with it for now. As long as the Empress Dowager gives the order, we can attack Lin Ling." The left prime minister gritted his teeth and said. At that moment, Lin Ling was walking along the 5-ring city. Before he reached Fei Jinling's residence, several figures caught up with him. They were Sakura, Ming Lu and Xian Linglong. I've already said that I can deal with this matter myself. Seeing their arrival, Lin Ling couldn't help but shake his head and smile. Bullshit, second brother. How can I miss out on such a lively event? I've long disliked the flying golden plume. If I wasn't in seclusion, I would like to see how powerful this guy is. Sakura immediately said. In fact, he could have been in seclusion for a longer time. However, after hearing the news that Lin Ling had returned, he immediately came out of seclusion. Lin Ling glanced at his brother and found that Sakura had reached level 4 martial immortal realm. Moreover, his aura was vigorous. It seemed that his true god martial spirit had undergone some changes. That's right. If we're talking about the most monstrous genius in Qingzhou, I'm only convinced by Lin Ling. Even if the others are rising like comets, they're still useless. Meng Lu also said with a smile. His strength had also greatly increased. Looking at Xian Lingwang, she was also the same. If that's the case, let's go together. Anyway, it's not a big deal. Lin Ling said indifferently. However, I'll deal with Fei Jinling myself because he's touched my reverse scale. Alright. The three of them nodded. The place where the flying gold plume was located was a majestic palace. At this moment, many experts from various places had arrived and were flattering him happily. For the experts, Fei Jinling was the future of Qingzhou. If they didn't flatter him now, when would they? Rumble. However, Lin Ling arrived and smashed the entire palace into pieces with a gentle slap. Fei Jinling, right? I, Lin Ling, am here for you. His casual words resounded in Five Ring City, causing the entire city to move. Chapter 2960. Azura's arm. I don't like to listen to nonsense. If words can't solve a problem, I'll solve it with my fists. Who else is unhappy? Lin Ling floated in the sky, waved his fist, and looked indifferently at the ambitious and ruthless people. I don't care about this anymore. Your Excellency Lin Ling, do as you wish. The heroes pondered for a moment and left the place. What a joke! If they continued to nag, Lin Ling would kill them. They had also heard of Lin Ling's arrogance in the Eight Gods' heavenly palace. In addition, with Lin Ling's status in the imperial court, offending Lin Ling was the same as offending the imperial court. Therefore, they were not stupid. However, they watched from afar, wanting to see how the two comet-like geniuses would clash. One was the most monstrous genius in the past, Lin Ling. The other was the comet-flying golden plume, who rose after the Eight Gods' heavenly palace. There was no doubt about their strength, but who was stronger? I think the flying golden plume is stronger. After all, he defeated by Xiaoyang of the White Tiger Divine Palace. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Lin Ling also killed the Azure Dragon King. Discussions could be heard at the same time. Even Indra, Meng Lu, and the others were chatting with each other in a carefree manner. Meng Lu, how many moves do you think Lin Ling will take to win? Within 10 moves, Lin Ling will kill the flying golden plume. 10 moves? I think 3 moves. The two of them talked without restraint, causing everyone to look at them in awe. They knew that these two were not to be underestimated among the 9 heavens of Qing province. On the ground, the flying golden plume had already appeared, looking coldly at the sky. He did not expect Lin Ling to come. And he did not expect Lin Ling to be so arrogant. Especially when he heard the conversation between Meng Lu and the others. He was so angry that his face turned gloomy. He had defeated Bai Xiaoyang before. So how could he be defeated in 3 moves like this? Senior brother, why don't you apologize? What makes him even angrier is that the Jade Star Maiden beside him also thinks highly of Lin Ling, and actually wants him to apologize. Shut up. The flying gold plume could no longer hold back. You're called flying gold plume, right? I have no enmity with you, but you forcefully took my people away. Don't you know that this is provoking me? At this moment, Lin Ling's voice rang out. So what? Fei Jinling raised his head and said with a strong aura. Nothing. I just feel that you're so weak yet so arrogant. Don't you think you're courting death? Lin Ling said calmly. Bullshit. When the flying gold plume heard those disdainful words, he was so angry that he roared. I know that you've had a fortuitous encounter in the Eight Gods' heavenly palace, and that has boosted your confidence. You want to stand tall in Qingzhou and tell everyone that life is full of ups and downs. I don't object to that. But I don't understand. Do you think you'll be famous in Qingzhou after taking my people away? Lin Ling said again. When he saw the flying gold plume sneering, he continued. It's better to be down to earth on the path of martial arts. You can reach the heavens in a single bound. But not too many. Nonsense. Didn't you, Lin Ling, reach the heavens in a single bound? Hearing that, the flying gold plume sneered and said disdainfully. Hee hee. It seems that you still don't understand. Do you think that I, Lin Ling, reached the heavens in a single bound? I've fought countless battles in Qingzhou, and I've risen step by step. Hearing that, Lin Ling shook his head. I've said that you talk too much nonsense. If you only rely on your mouth to become one of the 9 heavens of Qingzhou, then you'd better admit defeat. The flying gold plume smirked and said indifferently. When he saw Lin Ling shaking his head, he thought that Lin Ling couldn't refute him. This made him feel ashamed. Unfortunately, he didn't know that Lin Ling shook his head, because Lin Ling felt that there was no need for him to nag anymore. They said that you can defeat me in 3 moves. I think that's a joke. In 3 moves I want you, Lin Ling, to be defeated. Moreover, I want the entire Qingzhou to witness this earth-shattering battle. The flying gold plume floated up, and his realm essence surged like the water of the heavenly river. I did have a fortuitous encounter in the 8 gods' heavenly palace. When I defeated the master of the White Tiger Immortal Mansion, I didn't use my full strength. Now I'll show Qingzhou how powerful I am. Behind him, a blood-red light shot up into the sky, forming circles of light ripples that enveloped the entire Qingzhou. At the same time, an arm floated up from behind him. This arm was covered in blood, as though it had just been cut off. However, the moment he appeared, the flying gold plume's aura changed. As he moved, the blood-red light turned the sky into a blood-red color. A large number of buildings in the 5-ring city exploded instantly, forming an indescribable pressure field. Around them, the faces of the old monsters changed drastically. What arm is that? I'm afraid it's a very high-level divine body. Everyone felt that it was difficult to breathe. They guessed that this was a pressure that came from the innate talent. Unless their cultivation was higher, or their ultimate martial Tao was stronger, they wouldn't be able to resist the pressure. You're quite capable. Even Meng Lu's eyes flickered. The pinnacle of the divine body. Sakura also guessed. He didn't expect that although the flying gold plume was arrogant, he was indeed capable. Ha ha ha, the 2 of you aren't blind. At this moment, the flying gold plume spoke faintly, but his expression was extremely mysterious. He knew that everyone in Qingzhou was curious about what kind of divine body he had obtained. Lin Ling, are you afraid now? However, the flying gold plume didn't intend to reveal the answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Lin Ling and sneered. Azura's arm. However, just as he finished speaking, Lin Ling shook his head and said, So, this is your trump card. This undoubtedly caused the flying gold plume's heart to thump. Originally, he thought that Lin Ling would treat him seriously and be wary of his divine body. However, who knew that Lin Ling had guessed the origin of his divine body and was still so calm? So what? Lin Ling, I know that you've cultivated the Azura sword formation before. However, do you know that the master of the sword formation is the Azura King? When your sword met my Azura's arm, it was as if it met its master. Are you afraid? Do you regret it? Since Lin Ling knew about it, the flying gold plume didn't intend to hide anything. He stepped forward and said, Do you know? I'm already very strong. However, in the eyes of the people in Qingzhou, I'm only as strong as you. What makes you think you are? So, this is the reason why you're courting death. Hearing this, Lin Ling shook his head again and said, However, if you want to know what makes me think I am, I'll tell you. Roar! The realm-devouring beast appeared behind Lin Ling, causing the wind and clouds in the sky to rumble. Now that his godly demon body was enhanced, his physical strength was extremely terrifying. He quickly shot towards the flying gold plume like a ferocious beast in the sky. Trash talent. Chapter 2961. Defeated with a single punch. If you want to defeat me with that talent, let me tell you, you're still too young. The most terrifying thing was that the flying gold plume had used the Azura arm for the first seal. In the sky, the blood-red color began to surge like a sea current and turned into a huge blood-red palm. It followed closely behind the flying golden plume and grabbed at Lin Ling. At that moment, the palm was like the Azure King. So powerful. The flying gold plume's strength has greatly surpassed the four symbols' holy mansion master. Seeing that, the people were shocked. The flying gold plume was one of the most demonic geniuses in Qingzhou. Although he had only been famous for a short period of time, even shorter than Lin Ling, he deserved the title. Maybe Lin Ling won't be able to defeat him. Someone said. It was the Marquis of Sovereign Justice and other top powers. Obviously, they had also come because of the fame. Especially when they saw Lin Ling's terrifying aura, their faces turned pale. That was because they felt that Lin Ling was like the arrival of Emperor Qing. However, after seeing the flying gold plume's bloody palm, their confidence was boosted. The flying gold plume should not be weaker than Lin Ling. The peak divine body was definitely worthy of its reputation. Moreover, it was the Azure King's arm. If the flying gold plume obtained the other arm of the Azure King, and even the complete body of the Azure King, the flying gold plume would have the chance to become a god. Under countless gazes, the two figures collided violently. Rumble. The intense power of the collision directly broke the five-ring city. Sakura and Minglu looked grave. They realized that they had underestimated the flying gold plume. It might be difficult for Lin Ling to defeat the flying gold plume in 3 moves. Even within 10 moves, they would be evenly matched. Both of them are emperor-level geniuses. They can defeat a rank 6 martial immortal when they are only initial stage martial immortals. I wonder who is more powerful in this collision. Many old monsters said solemnly. Rumble. However, as soon as they finished speaking, a figure crashed onto the ground like a meteor. The ground of the five-ring city was like waves, rolling out layer by layer. Boom. In the end, a huge crater that looked like it was hit by a meteorite appeared, and it kept cracking. Do you want to know why? Just based on this. At the same time, a figure floated above the huge pit, waving his fists, telling the people in the pit that he relied on his fists. As for that figure, his blue robe fluttered in the wind. It was Lin Ling. One move. At this moment, everyone was shocked, unable to believe the result before their eyes. Even Dreamflow and the others were the same. Originally, they had estimated that Lin Ling could defeat the flying golden plume in 3 moves. However, the flying golden plume had obtained the arm of Shenming Demon God, which changed the situation of the battle. Even they felt that it would be difficult for Lin Ling to win. However, they now knew that they had overestimated the flying gold plume and underestimated Lin Ling. That was because he only needed 1 move to defeat the flying Jinling. Whoosh! Lin Ling landed on the ground and then floated up, holding a figure in his hand. It was the flying golden plume. At this moment, his chest had been penetrated by a punch. He kept vomiting blood, and his face was extremely pale. However, his eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at Lin Ling. Impossible! How could this be? He had such powerful talents. How could he be defeated by Lin Ling in 1 move? You're really stupid. Even the residence of the left Prime Minister doesn't dare to provoke me. Why did you come here to seek your own death? Look around and see if there are people from the residence of the left Prime Minister. Lin Ling held the flying golden plume and said calmly. The flying golden plume looked around. However, there were no people from the residence of the left Prime Minister. He suddenly recalled the residence of the left Prime Minister's instructions. If he could get the person, he should do so. If he couldn't, he should give up. Do you understand now? Because they are also afraid of me. Lin Ling said again when he noticed the flying golden plume's gaze. Lin Ling looked calm and said, You think you're powerful because you have the peak divine body. However, all of this is child's play to me. You can't even take a punch from me. You'd better not be one of the 9 heavens in Qingzhou. Hearing those words, the flying golden plume's eyes trembled. Why is Lin Ling so powerful? Unfortunately, your talents are not limited to this. If you keep a low profile, you will have a bright future. Continue. The flying golden plume finally panicked because of what Lin Ling said. He was not in a hurry to provoke Lin Ling. In the future, he might be able to surpass Lin Ling. However, he was in too much of a hurry. No. Continue. He shouted out a single sentence. Bang. However, Lin Ling gave him a punch and destroyed him. Blood splattered on the ground like rain. The flying golden plume had the peak divine body, but so did Lin Ling. The flying golden plume's cultivation was at level 4 martial immortal realm. However, Lin Ling's 3 dantians had merged together. His strength was at level 6 martial immortal realm, coupled with the strength of his physical body and the power of the universe. The flying golden plume could not withstand a single blow. Looking at the blood splattering from the sky, the crowd was shocked. Lin Ling was too domineering. He defeated the flying golden plume with a single blow. This straightforward result was far beyond their imagination. Chapter 2962. She didn't dare to resist. This guy. The Sakura shook his head helplessly. Lin Ling didn't know how to be gentle with women. If I repeat what I said a second time, you will die. Lin Ling ignored the Jade Star Maiden and said again. The Jade Star Maiden felt that she had lost all her face. She gritted her teeth and flew towards the sky. She had taken the initiative to throw herself into his arms, but she had received such treatment. Her dignity seemed to have been humiliated. Unfortunately, she didn't know that Lin Ling hated people like her the most. When the flying gold plume was strong, she tried to curry favor with him. Now that the flying gold plume was dead, she tried to curry favor with him. Lin Ling already had a wife and children. Even if he didn't, he wouldn't even look at the flying gold plume. The people around, and all the martial artists in Qingzhou were looking at Lin Ling. They were still silent, but some people started to leave quietly. Marquis Sovereign, do you want to leave? However, just as those people were about to leave, Lin Ling had already spoken. This made the Marquis Sovereign, who was hidden in the crowd, tremble. His expression turned ugly. Come out. What kind of person are you to hide? Before the Marquis Sovereign could speak, Lin Ling spoke again with a calm expression. However, although his words were calm, they were like brilliant heavenly might. If the Marquis Sovereign wanted to come out, he had to come out. This kind of arrogant and overbearing attitude undoubtedly infuriated the Sovereign Marquis. However, he couldn't do anything. This was because he had already fought with Lin Ling in the 8 Gods' heavenly palace. He knew how ferocious this guy was. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. If you don't come out, don't blame me for being heartless. Although you are a formidable person in Qingzhou, and can shake the entire Qingzhou with a single move, if I, Lin Ling, want to touch you, I'm afraid you won't have any power to resist. Lin Ling said again. As soon as this sentence was said, Lin Ling was like the leader of a giant. Moreover, this calm voice floated in the sky of Qingzhou, causing the expressions of countless people to change drastically. The dignified Marquis of Sovereign Heaven had met Lin Ling. Could he only be humiliated like this? Lin Ling, what's the matter? The Sovereign Marquis knew that Lin Ling had already targeted him. He had no choice but to come out. Therefore, he endured the humiliation and walked out step by step. You came out too late. Give me a bow. Lin Ling looked at the Sovereign Marquis calmly and suddenly spoke. Upon hearing this, the Marquis of Sovereign Justice narrowed his eyes. Lin Ling was arrogantly telling him to bow. Veins immediately popped out on his forehead, and his eyes turned red. However, when his gaze met Lin Ling's, he realized that Lin Ling's gaze had turned cold. Sorry I'm late. For some reason, the Marquis of Sovereign Justice bowed. Perhaps he was really afraid of that pair of eyes. The experts around were shocked. Even the giants of Five Ring City were shocked. They didn't expect that when the Marquis of Sovereign Justice met Lin Ling, he wouldn't dare to resist at all. He would do whatever Lin Ling wanted him to do. This change made them feel that it was very unreal. This was because even if the Marquis of Sovereign Justice exchanged a few blows with Lin Ling, or even resisted a few words, it would have been good enough. However, there was no resistance at all. Very good. Lin Ling wasn't surprised by the Marquis of Sovereign Justice's attitude. This person was ambitious and knew when to yield and when to stand tall. Naturally, he wouldn't confront him head-on. Moreover, Lin Ling also knew that if the Marquis of Sovereign Justice confronted him head-on, then Lin Ling would be able to beat him up like a dog. In fact, Lin Ling was also looking forward to the Marquis of Sovereign Justice being arrogant. Unfortunately, The Marquis of Sovereign Justice didn't dare to be arrogant. In the past, when I went to the two commanderies for the first time, you stopped me halfway and asked me for a person. Now where is that person? I want her back from you. Lin Ling said again with a faint smile. Threatening the Marquis of Sovereign Justice was as easy as drinking water. Hearing this, the Marquis of Sovereign Justice's face turned ferocious, but he held it in. He smiled and said, Queen Qianji disappeared a long time ago. I haven't been able to find her. Lin Ling, I didn't do anything to Queen Qianji, so I hope you won't target me. At the end of his sentence he bowed and saluted. However, the humiliation in his heart turned into a monstrous wave, especially when Lin Ling talked about the past. At that time, Lin Ling was like an ant in his eyes. But now he was the ant. Lin Ling already knew that the Marquis of Sovereign Justice failed to capture the Queen of Qianji. However, he shook his head and said, I don't care about that. Since you took her away from me, you have to return her. As for how you're going to bring her back, that's up to you. You. Hearing this, the Marquis of Sovereign Justice raised his head and gritted his teeth. If he knew where Queen Qianji was, he would have caught her a long time ago. So Lin Ling's request was even harder than reaching the heavens. Don't test my patience. When I, Lin Ling, am really angry, no one can save you. Not the 4 magnates behind you, not the 99 crown princes, not the left prime minister, not even the prime minister. Lin Ling said again. His tone was filled with authority. He said it in front of everyone in Qingzhou. He didn't give anyone face. Everyone was stunned when they heard that. Even the leaders of the overlords hiding in the Qing prefecture were stunned. Their expressions turned ugly after that. Was Lin Ling trying to tell everyone that the leader of the magnates was nothing but a fart in his eyes? I don't know. I really don't know. Lin Ling, don't force me. The Marquis of Sovereign Justice was completely flustered. It seems like you really don't know any better. Lin Ling took a step forward and appeared in front of the Marquis of Sovereign Justice. He looked down at him and slowly stretched out his right hand, wanting to slap him. Seeing this, the Marquis of Sovereign Justice immediately unleashed his boundary essence. Try it. However, just as the Marquis of Sovereign Justice was about to resist, Lin Ling stared at him, causing the Marquis of Sovereign Justice's expression to change. He immediately retracted all his boundary essence and didn't dare to resist at all. Slap. A slap landed on the Marquis of Sovereign Justice's face. Aren't you very arrogant? You kept provoking me. Where is your confidence now? Didn't you ask me to hand her over? Now where did that arrogance go? Aren't you someone that the Emperor Qing values? Why isn't your father here? Slap. 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 The crisp sound of the slap was like thunder. It landed on the Marquis of Sovereign Justice's face, causing his face to turn green and red. He wanted to resist a few times, but in the end he endured it. That was because he didn't know if Lin Ling would kill him. However, if he resisted, Lin Ling would definitely kill him. The magnates of Qingzhou didn't appear at this moment. Obviously, they were also afraid of Lin Ling. Therefore, the Marquis of Sovereign Justice knew that he was alone and helpless at this moment. What a tragedy. He was slapped in the face just like that. He didn't even dare to resist. Seeing that refreshing scene, many old monsters sighed and shook their heads. In front of Lin Ling, the Marquis of Sovereign Justice was like a slave. Lin Ling, you're very impressive. You came back so arrogantly. Do you want to move the powerhouse behind Qingzhou? You don't know that if you're too arrogant, you'll become a thorn in their side. However, at this moment, someone finally appeared. Chapter 2963. The 9 heavens of Qing province announced the arrival of imperial concubine Shi. The person in the sky was a delicate beauty. She wore a long pink dress and had a slender figure. Her long hair draped over her back and was gently tied up with a pink ribbon. Behind her, there was a mist of clouds. She was incomparably beautiful. Her appearance was so beautiful that it was impossible to look at her directly. This time, everyone was greatly shocked. This was because they had never seen this woman, who could make the sun and moon lose their light. However, they were certain that since this person had arrived at such a critical moment, his strength was definitely at the top of the Azure State. It's her. Sakura and the rest all reacted because that was the Shi Fei they saw in Wake Dragon Palace. You're finally here. However, when he saw Shifei, Lin Ling's expression didn't change at all. You think I'm arrogant, but have you ever thought that I did it on purpose? Hearing Lin Ling's words, Shifei's eyes flashed. She thought that Lin Ling didn't know the depth of Qing province, so he was arrogant. But who knew that Lin Ling was doing it on purpose? This made her unable to guess Lin Ling's intentions. Was it the imperial dynasty's idea? For a moment, she fell silent. However, the sovereign Marquis's eyes kept flickering, as if he had seen his savior. Marquis of Sovereign Heaven, you are very happy, right? Someone has finally come to save you. However, you don't seem to know who she is. Then let me tell you. She is Shifei, one of the 9 heavenly emblems of Qing province. She is also one of the 4 hidden heavenly emblems. Rumor has it that she is an expert who has talked to Qing Diyi. Lin Ling turned to look at the sovereign Marquis. The sovereign Marquis was overjoyed. The most mysterious 4 out of the 9 heavens of the Green Prefecture were so strong that they were almost as strong as the leader of the magnates. With the help of such experts, Lin Ling would definitely be helpless. But let me remind you, it's useless even if she comes. You stay here. After I deal with her, I'll catch up with you. However, Lin Ling said such a sentence and said it so casually. This time, the sovereign Marquis's heart was pounding. Could it be that Lin Ling wanted to defeat the most mysterious 4 people? Even the surrounding people were shocked. Lin Ling gave them the feeling that he had long known that this would happen. At this moment, not just them, even the giants couldn't see through Lin Ling. How was this Lin Ling a young genius? He was more like the Azure Emperor. Lin Ling's arrogance was naturally intentional. He walked towards Shifei and said, Shifei, this seems to be the first time we've met. But you seem to be targeting me. Shifei quietly looked at Lin Ling. She discovered that Lin Ling's strength had increased, but it wasn't enough to make her fear him. Therefore, she guessed that there must be someone behind Lin Ling. Moreover, the sword was double-edged. It could kill both the enemy and oneself. With Lin Ling's strength, he definitely couldn't control that sword. In the end, he would be playing with fire. Lin Ling, you're too confident in yourself. I'll fulfill your wish. After killing you, I still want to go back and drink. My wine can't be cold. Shifei was indeed the most mysterious genius. Although she was much stronger than Lin Ling, she wouldn't underestimate her opponent, nor would she reduce her aura. Terrifying world essence gushed out from her body. Treasure light clashed. That mysterious energy was extremely shocking. Moreover, her cultivation realm was also revealed. It was the 5th level of the martial immortal realm. Sure enough, she hid her strength in the Wake Dragon Palace. This woman is very strong. She has mastered the power of the realm, the power of the universe that can destroy everything. Sakura and Minglu had seen Shifei before, so they knew how terrifying that woman was. There was no doubt about the strength of someone who could be invited by Emperor Qing for a night chat. Warm wine moistens the throat. Cold wine is indeed a favor. I hope you can really drink warm wine. Lin Ling held the tyrannical Song sword in his right hand, and the best jade talisman he had obtained from the Wake Dragon Palace in his left hand. That was an attack talisman that could increase his strength. That was because he knew that Shifei couldn't be underestimated. If I, Shifei, want to drink wine, Emperor Qing can't stop me. Shifei also roared. She looked like a beautiful woman, but she was as domineering as an ambitious person. Her hands became as clear as jade, but she didn't show her talent. That was because her talent wasn't very strong. She was only at the 10th level. Her strength came from her realm. Chapter 2964. 1/ kill. Warm the wine, kill Lin Ling. When her aura reached its peak, an indescribable power bloomed from Shifei's body, making her seem like the Azure Emperor, the Son of Heaven. The Stare of Courage. This was a type of deity's power, able to destroy any type of attack. In the distance, the third princess and the others were also watching the battlefield with grave expressions. In Qingzhou, apart from a limited number of people, it was rare to see the power of the Stare of Courage. Now it finally bloomed in Qingzhou. The power of the Stare of Courage was domineering and could destroy the universe. In the sky, the dark clouds were all destroyed, revealing the void of the universe. However, the void of the universe also shattered like glass. Within it, a jade-like palm slapped towards Lin Ling. Flames, frost, lightning, and gales roared around the jade-like palm. That palm seemed slow, but it carried the power of the universe's laws. It instantly appeared in front of Lin Ling. Seeing this, everyone's expression changed drastically. The power of heaven and earth that was activated by that palm made their hearts palpitate. She was no longer a delicate beauty. She was simply a goddess of war, a majestic goddess of war. At this moment, Lin Ling's expression turned grave. He held the sword in his hand, and all his essence, energy and spirit surged. In addition to the power of the jade talisman, the headless elder appeared behind him, and it seemed to have merged with him. It seemed slow, but in fact it only took an instant. No one saw Lin Ling, as everyone was attracted by Shifei's jade-like palm. Die! Finally, a cold voice floated out from Shifei's mouth. Her jade-like palm was dazzling, and her courage was unparalleled. Looking at the palm that covered the sky, Lin Ling shouted and slashed with his sword. The tyrant song in his hand was dazzling, and demonic aura surged. Clang! The sound of metal colliding rang out. The five-ring city, which was originally in ruins, exploded with a shockwave. Bang bang bang! Countless people were overturned, and the weaker ones were killed by the shockwave. Meng Lu and the others were sent flying as well. They sensed Valiant's aura. That should be the stairway of courage. It was indeed as terrifying as the rumors said. However, their eyes were still glued to the front, deeply afraid that they would miss something. Crack! Finally, a clear and melodious sound resounded. A huge sword collided with the jade palm in the sky, and the sword was blocked. However, cracks quickly appeared on the jade palm, and after an entire breath of time, it was actually slashed apart by the sword. After the jade palm was broken, the sparkling and resplendent sword light immediately passed over Shifei's neck. Shifei's eyes froze there. Her heart rumbled. The power of rank. As for the scene in the sky, it was as if it had been frozen. Qingzhou was silent. Millions of people were silent, and the entire city was shocked. Shifei, one of the four most mysterious heavenly blessings of the Qing province, controlled the stare of courage, and brandished her strongest attack. She originally wanted to kill Lin Ling, but at this moment she stopped abruptly. This was like a war song, incomparably impassioned, resounding, shocking and inspiring. However, at the most crucial moment of the performance, the strings broke, and the music ended. This was like warming wine. Before the wine was warmed, the person had already passed away. It was too sudden. The world became quiet, this seemed becoming still. One sword strike, just one sword strike. Wasn't this sword strike a little too terrifying? This guy has entered the fourth place of the 9 heavenly blessings of the Qing province. After a moment of silence, Sakura's voice came out softly, but it was shocking. Hearing that, everyone in Qingzhou looked at the sky. There, the young man stood facing the wind. His blue robe was like clouds, and his long hair gently floated over his shoulders. His gaze was calm, and he maintained the posture of brandishing the sword with one hand. In front of him, Shifei stood there lifelessly, her eyes staring at that huge sword. She suddenly wanted to say something. Perhaps she wanted to say, "Why are you so powerful? How is this possible? Your sword has the power of rank." Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything. She finally raised her white jade-like hand and pointed at Lin Ling. Die! Without waiting for Shifei to do anything else, Lin Ling directly slashed down from the sky. For someone who wanted to kill him, even if it was a beauty, he wouldn't be merciful, because he had given her a chance before. Boom! That sword directly beheaded the #1 beauty of Qingzhou. This scene made everyone's hearts tremble. What an awe-inspiring sword. What a sharp sword. From now on, there was one less person among the 9 heavenly blessings of Qingzhou. Moreover, it was one of the most mysterious heavenly blessings. The silence finally stopped. Next, there was an uproar in the entire city. Those excited voices came from the martial god barracks, the resplendent academy, and the imperial court. Everyone was excited, and their bodies were trembling nonstop. Lin Ling had killed Shifei, which meant that Lin Ling had officially stepped into the ranks of the top in Qingzhou. Thinking back to Lin Ling and everything else, they felt like they were dreaming. As for the leaders of the various powerhouses, their expressions changed drastically. They never expected that even the powerful Shifei couldn't block Lin Ling's sword. Qingzhou was obviously going to change. Plop! The sovereign marquis sat on the ground powerlessly, his face incomparably pale. Even Shifei couldn't save him? When did Lin Ling become so powerful? As for Lin Ling, he had already walked down with his sword on his back. Chapter 2969. I'll let you have 100 moves. Don't worry, he's just a servant, Lin Ling said again. Lin Ling, that's enough. The Marquis of Sovereign Justice finally shouted. He could embarrass himself in front of everyone, but he could not embarrass himself in front of Queen Qianji. Hehe, the servant of the past has become much bolder today. I can see that your strength has increased greatly. Why don't I give you a chance? I won't attack you within 100 moves. If you can kill me, I, Lin Ling, will leave immediately. Lin Ling smiled calmly. His words made everyone's pupils dilate. If he didn't fight back after 100 moves, even a real deity would be killed. Moreover, the Marquis of Sovereign Justice was a deity. Lin Ling, you're crazy. Queen Qianji's expression changed drastically. Don't worry, he can't hurt me. Lin Ling waved his hand and looked at the Marquis of Sovereign Justice calmly. The Marquis of Sovereign Justice did not expect Lin Ling to be so arrogant. He admitted that Lin Ling was terrifying in the past. He was no match for him in a head-on clash. However, not fighting back after 100 moves was a different concept. Moreover, his strength had increased greatly. He might really be able to kill Lin Ling. Are you sure? The Marquis of Sovereign Justice stood up. Do I need to be sure of such a small matter? However, Lin Ling softly spat out a sentence. His words made everyone in the Great Freedom Realm think that Lin Ling was too arrogant. This was unparalleled arrogance. Sir, if he wants to die, let him be. We'll help you. Beside the Marquis of Sovereign Justice, the elites who followed him from Qingzhou all shouted. In their opinion, this was the best time to kill Lin Ling. Come at me together. However, Lin Ling was fearless. All right. The Marquis of Sovereign Justice was afraid that Lin Ling would change his mind. He waved his hand, and the elites around him all attacked. Rumble. All kinds of powerful martial arts exploded out, as if they were trying to flip over the Great Freedom World. The martial artists of the Great Freedom World were like cicadas in winter. These methods were simply the methods of a god. Lin Ling. Queen Qianji floated up and shouted worriedly. The earth continued to crack. Lin Ling was directly smashed into the earth by the powerful martial arts, causing him to suffer a little injury. However, he was overjoyed. Just as he had guessed, the dragon bone was beginning to be absorbed by the god-devil body with the help of external forces. However, it still wasn't enough. Only by using physical attacks could the dragon bones absorb more energy. Bang! Stomping on the ground, Lin Ling soared into the sky and waved his hand at the people of the world. Still too weak. It's like a mosquito bite. Show me something stronger. This guy. Everyone opened their mouths wide. Then they unleashed their unique skills once again. According to the usual rules, anyone who has contributed to the Great Azure Divine Dynasty during the Heavenly Fruit Conference will be able to obtain a heavenly fruit. The palace made set again. As these words fell, many older cultivators smiled. At their age, they valued cultivation treasures, but they valued their lifespan even more. Without lifespan, no matter how many treasures they had, they were useless. After all, cultivation required time. Lin Ling obtained the Azure Thearch's Imperial Jade Seal and activated the Son of Heaven's mandate. He has fulfilled the promise given by the gods. Therefore, he has contributed and will be rewarded with 3 heavenly fruits. While everyone was pleasantly surprised, the Empress Dowager, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. What was surprising was that although she looked dignified, her words were extremely kind. Lin Ling, I intend to reward you with 3 heavenly fruits. Kneel down and receive the heavenly fruits. The Empress Dowager said again with a smile. 3 heavenly fruits. That's 3,000 years of lifespan. Hearing this, many people's eyes turned red with envy. Even the 99th prince, and the others were the same. They did not understand why the Empress Dowager was so nice to Lin Ling after he killed old Mother Lane and humiliated the Empress Dowager. Many people began to look at Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling was still drinking. He smiled and said softly, "I'm still young, unlike these old farts. Therefore, I don't need too many rewards. Just give me the one that belongs to me." "How dare you? You're defying the decree." Someone immediately reprimanded him. The people were also shocked. They did not expect Lin Ling to be so generous that he did not want the treasure given by the Empress Dowager. "It's all right. Lin Ling is a straightforward person. What he said is right. He's young and does not need so many heavenly fruits. Men, reward him with a heavenly fruit." At this moment, the Empress Dowager also spoke with a smile. Surprisingly, she was still not angry. However, such shrewdness made everyone realize how terrifying the Empress Dowager was. Even Lin Ling's eyes flickered. Was that woman the murderer who destroyed the sacred ground of the rainforest? However, she was also more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. One had to know that a lion that could roar was terrifying, but a lion that could endure was even more terrifying. My beloved subjects, you can all receive a heavenly fruit. However, today is the Heavenly Fruit Conference. There are fine wine and immortal fruits, but the atmosphere is lacking. The Empress Dowager did not harp on the previous matter. She looked at the crowd and smiled. "Why don't we invite someone to dance and increase the mood? I heard that the third princess is the #1 beauty of the Qing state, and is equally famous as consort Shifei." Lin Ling had fought against 2 heaven's gifts at the same time. In the end, one was dead and the other was crippled. This meant that Lin Ling was probably the #1 heaven's gift in Qing state. He could even compete with the last person. At the thought of this, the various magnates found it difficult to breathe. Even the leader of the magnates felt the intense pressure. "Your Excellency Lin Ling, it was just a spar. Yet you killed 2 heaven's gifts. This is weakening Qing state's combat power." At this moment, a palace maid beside the Empress Dowager said coldly. She seemed to want to speak on behalf of the Empress Dowager to punish Lin Ling. Everyone was stunned. This was because Lin Ling had fought against Heavenly Court Absolute Killer Xiong Hu. It was Heavenly Court Absolute Killer Xiong Hu who had invited him to battle. Now that he was dead, the Empress Dowager wanted to blame Lin Ling? "Yes, I killed them. So what?" Lin Ling slowly sheathed his sword. He looked at the Empress Dowager indifferently and said, "I didn't expect the leader of the great Qing divine dynasty to be so shameless. The wine was invited by you. The dance was also suggested by you. Now you are blaming me for killing them? However, I can understand your anger. The magnates don't have many experts to begin with. Now that 2 of them have died, this is undoubtedly a loss of wings for the magnates." Ha 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 ha. At the end of his sentence, Lin Ling laughed maniacally. Hearing this, the magnate's eyes turned red with anger. Until now, there were less than 10 people in Qing state who could defeat Lin Ling. Now that 2 of them had died, how could they not be angry? At this rate, other than the Azure Emperor, no one would be able to defeat Lin Ling. "Lin Ling, you are talking nonsense. You are just lucky." Seeing how arrogant Lin Ling was, the palace maid looked at the Empress Dowager and hurriedly said, "Lucky? Then, you can ask your men to come out and invite me to dance again. I would like to see how many of you magnates I can kill." Chapter 2979. Heavenly Prince Guangshuan, one of the 3 emperors of the Crimson Province. "Oh, you won't even give me a word? As a martial artist, you have to be calm. If you're too impatient, you won't be able to achieve anything." Heavenly Prince Guangshuan said indifferently, "Seeing that you're old, I won't blame you, but you'll have to drink a cup as punishment." "Drink." After saying that, he threw the wine cup in his hand at the Prime Minister. Heavenly Prince Guangshuan had already drunk half of that cup of wine. If he really wanted to punish him, he would have given him a new cup of wine. Therefore, he was also humiliating the Prime Minister. "You, drink." The Prime Minister's face suddenly turned ugly. Drink! Drink! Heavenly Prince Guangshuan squinted at the Prime Minister, causing the latter to grit his teeth and drink the cup of wine. Heavenly Prince Guangshuan ignored the Prime Minister. He looked at the crowd lazily and said, Qing Province and Crimson Province are neighbors. They're both the weakest divine prefecture in the 9 province. So we should work harder and not let the other divine prefectures look down on us. Today we came here for a purpose. The top experts of the 2 divine prefectures will exchange pointers and pursue the great Tao together. Drink! Beside him, a young man suddenly walked out. This person was at the 6th level of the martial immortal realm. His aura was extraordinary, and his body had the great Tao's aura. Who's coming? Drink! After walking out, he looked at the crowd contemptuously. Today is the Heavenly Fruit Conference. It's supposed to be a joyous occasion. Drink! Seeing this, the Empress Dowager said with a smile. Empress Dowager, you're not strict enough with them. No wonder Qing Province is so weak. It's because of you, old woman. No, Empress Dowager. Look at my mouth. I say what I think. Sorry. Heavenly Prince Guangshuan put his legs on the table and said lazily. It seemed that he was apologizing, but everyone knew that he didn't take the Empress Dowager seriously at all. Empress Dowager, let your people come. Martial artists should never give up on martial arts. Drink, he said again, making it difficult for the Empress Dowager to refuse. Let me drink. However, before the Empress Dowager could speak, someone had already walked out from beside her. It was a woman with ordinary looks, but she had a valiant aura. She was the Empress Dowager's personal maid. 7th level of the martial immortal realm? That's 2. Is Qing Province? Is there no one? You actually let your delicate girl go up on stage. This is too shameful. The young man said disdainfully. Cut the crap. Let's see who's better. That palace maid's talent wasn't weak. She had a tier 10 divine body, and her universal force had reached 90%. Her jade-like hands danced, and winter snow sealed the sky. This time the surrounding temperature dropped again.